What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be tanning a couple deer hides. This one was shot 2 years ago, and then I have one that was shot this year. So I've tanned a bobcat hide before, and I used a skinning knife and the whole deal. It takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of time. I was not good at it. So I've been seeing some ways of using an orbital bit, one of those bits on a pressure washer that spins around, and taking the fine flesh off the hide that way. So I'm going to be trying that out, and then once I get these cleaned up, I'm going to be salting them, and then in a different video I'm going to be doing a Euro mount on a deer skull as well. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm basically just got this table on an angle, got the hide clamped down. They say don't go over 2500 psi with your pressure washer. This one, I believe it's an electric one, so I think it only really goes to like 18 or 2200 maybe, so I think I should be good. But I'm just going to kind of start far back, work my way down, see what it takes, and we'll see how it goes. I've also got these Carhartt overalls, like waterproof ones. Josh got they're way too big, so I look like a clown, but they're better than getting everything all over my clothes. I've also got gloves because it's a lot easier to grip things when they're wet with gloves, so I recommend doing that. But jump right into it. This is already working pretty well. It's taking a lot. It's getting right down to this white stuff, which is what you want. It's already quicker than a tanning knife. It does have quite a bit of blowback. So I'm getting deer nastiness all over my face. So if that freaks you out, you might want to use a mask, but I don't have one right now, so I'm just gonna go for it. This is working so much better than I thought. Getting these big old hunks off here. This is pretty rad. This one was honestly not skinned super well, and it's still handling it way better than what I could do with the tanning knife. So, and I'm not puncturing the hide. On the bobcat one, so thin that knife was so sharp. I have not had enough practice doing it that way. And I didn't have a good tanning stick to actually scrape on. I was using a chair. So anyways, this is coming off pretty nicely. I'm pretty happy. This thing's also doing a good job of stretching the hide out as I'm going. And man, God, this is crazy. I'm gonna do this side, try to get everything pushed off, flip it over at all four corners and work the sides. And yeah, hopefully get this done somewhat quickly. Check that out. This is all what's coming off that you don't want on your hide. It's blocking the salt from getting to the actual hide. So if you had to salt all that, and you got to get this stuff off. It's super important. So it's all doing well. Gonna flip this thing on its side. I would imagine too, around the edges, I'm probably gonna have to trim some just because everything doesn't always come off and make it look clean anyway. So I'm not super worried about the end, but I'm trying to get everything I can off. I am going to call that good. Very, very stoked. This is actually a doe. Pretty rad. Got so much stuff off. I can't believe it, honestly. I thought it'd work, but just not this well. Try to squeegee some of this water off. Like I said, I'm probably gonna have to cut some off anyways, so it got the ends really well, but I am like that bullet hole. Actually, that was a arrow hole, but super impressed with this. That's pretty rad. So I'm gonna spray this table off and move on to the next one. And then I'm just gonna use this table to salt the hides. This doe was quite a bit bigger. It was nighttime and moving kind of quick, so probably didn't get skinned as well. Still a tad bit frozen. Also had a lot of fat on her, just crazy. Hoping by the time I get some water on this thing, it's gonna flatten out kind of nice. I'm gonna start with the most defrosted side, work my way down from there. This seriously takes all of the skill out of tanning a deer hide, or skinning a deer hide. I'm very positive that someone that's really good with a knife could do way better than this. They make it look so nice, but like this bit was 45 bucks. Pressure washer was probably like 80 bucks. Like to get a good tanning setup, you gotta spend more than that. Plus you should have a pressure washer anyways, you know, just in general for life. But this really just, the time takes it all out of the equation. Like I said, they could probably do a better job, but I couldn't do a better job. I for sure couldn't do a better job than this. So it's pretty nice. Okay, so the GoPro ran out of battery, and I hope that was all, the lighting was kind of odd and all that, but it took me about 40 minutes to do 2 deer hides. Granted, San Diego deer, both doe, a little bit smaller than the bigger bucks, but incredible time. And as you can see, sorry, my pressure washer keeps repressurizing, like, I mean, like perfect. Both of them. So I don't know. If you're like me, you're kind of a weekend warrior hunter and don't have a ton of time on your hands, this is definitely the way to go if you're trying to tan a deer hide and already have all the tools anyways. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is salting them. I have a kit from TruBond. Comes with citric acid, sodium bicarbonate, some little tester strips to check your water, and then it comes with this TruBond. It's called TruBond 1000B. And then it comes with Liposolve 77 and Liposolve 55. This is 2 kits combined. I already used part of one and then bought another one. So I have done one through them. Like I said, it wasn't nearly as good as a Bobcat, and it still worked really well. I still had flesh on when I salted it and all that stuff. So I'm gonna read the instructions, make sure I'm doing it right, but I'm gonna basically lay them out on that table and try to just get them covered in salt. It's got to salt for like a day, then shake it off, resalt it for like 48 hours. And then start mixing these chemicals and putting them in these buckets, letting them soak. Okay, so I've got my table. The only thing this kit doesn't come with is salt. So I've got salt, iodine free. I believe that's what you want to be using. I have a bunch of salt. Lay these deer hides out, and I think they don't expect you to use a pressure washer to do this. So the hides are really hydrated right now, which they're normally not that hydrated when you skin them. So I'm going to get these laid out. Like I said, they're really hydrated, so I don't know if it's going to require more salt. I don't really know what's going to go on with them. I'm going to try to kind of squeegee them out as I stand here, and then just get them covered in salt. Like I said, there's a little more moisture, a lot more moisture than normally is. So I might get some salt later today and just reapply all this. This is what they look like. Salt everywhere. Like I said, I might go get some more. But as of now, that's pretty good. I'm gonna let these sit and then we'll wipe them off tomorrow afternoon, resalt them, and then we'll get on. So last night, with how wet the hides were, I actually decided to scrape the salt off around 7:30 and resalt them before coming out today and redoing it again. There was a lot of moisture, I wanted to get it off, so I went and bought some more salt. Did that last night, didn't film it, but and then I moved it into my garage where it was nice and cool and dry. Didn't get any moisture from the night. Turned the fan on and just keep some air moving over it. So this is what they look like right now after pulling some salt off. I'm very happy I did that because the salt was just soaking wet, and now there's like some dry salt in there still. So it means we're doing pretty good. So it's been like 15 hours. I'm gonna get as much of this salt off as I can, do one more big salting, move it back under the fan for about another 24 hours, and then after that we'll be on to the next steps. So whenever you're doing this, obviously these hides are pretty strong, but this putty knife is also not sharp, but you do just want to be really careful not to puncture the hide. Doing this in the dirt so I can wash it off and it doesn't go into any of my plants. I don't need any help killing plants. I'm really not too great with them. I also still have the tail on this one. It's a really cool tail. I tried to get as much salt in there as I could. I didn't want to split it. It definitely might have to be taken off if it gets rotten, so we'll see, but kind of an experiment. After I finish doing this and re-salting them, I'm gonna be Euro mounting the skull of this doe, so make sure you check out that video too. Okay, so I'm gonna get these laid out best I can so that I can get as much salt coverage as possible. Realistically, you're kind of supposed to hang them after you salt them, but I don't really have a good place to hang them. Now I'm going to gently drag this into my garage. Got a fan up here Got this fan going. Try to keep air moving over those hides. Come back in 24 hours, get all the salt off and get them back into a rehydration bath. See you then. Okay guys, we're on to the rehydration process. So I've got two 5-gallon buckets down here. You're gonna need 8 liters of water, 2 ounces of this, the Liposol 55, and then 8 ounces of salt. And I'm gonna do that into each bucket, see what it looks like, see if it can cover the hide. And it needs to rehydrate between 1 and 6 hours. I'm probably gonna go for about 3 hours. So I'm gonna get this all mixed up. I'm gonna put everything in here, let the water kind of dissolve everything. Already got the hides desalted, so taking all the salt off. And then I'm just gonna go out there, stuff them in there. And you gotta stir them about every 15 minutes. So hop right into that. Okay, so I've got these deer hides. They've been desalted, and I'm now going to stuff them into these baths. Okay, so I've got them in these buckets. I tried to, they're gonna float, kind of. I tried to keep the hide in the water, on the water side, and then basically I'm just gonna come out every 15 minutes or so, mix them around. I'm gonna go clean up inside, get these mixed around for about 2 hours, and then we'll pull them, and then we'll start the pickling bath portion of it. And then it's gonna have to sit in there for about 3 days or so, I think. I'll check that, but I believe it's about 3 days. Also, I cut the tail off that one. I just had a bad feeling because I didn't split it. There's still bone in there and whatnot. I had a bad feeling that the flesh was gonna get in there and ruin it. So I'm gonna take it and do kind of like what I would do with a turkey tail, and actually use some Bondo and seal this cap off. It's already been salted really good. Try to stuff some solution down in there, and then just maybe mount it to a piece of wood and hang it. So I just didn't want to risk it ruining the hide, because that's a lot more important to me than this is. But this still is pretty rad. I think it'll be a cool little piece to hang up once it's all cleaned up. It's a nice little tail. So these hides have been in the rehydration bath for about 2 hours. I've been stirring them about every 15 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out, hang dry them, and then clean out these buckets, do the pickling bath inside, get them back in there. So pull these things out. As we are on to the pickling process. So into each container, I'm gonna times the amount that goes into each by 1.5. So I'm gonna be adding a little bit more because it was a little light of water on when I was rehydrating the hides, and this pickling bath's gonna take a couple days, so I wanna make sure there's enough water in it. So for citric acid, I'm gonna go in with 9 ounces into each of them, and that the citric acid comes in this kit. And then I'm going in with 48 ounces of salt on each, and then I'm going in with 12 liters of lukewarm water. Okay, those are all mixed up. I'm gonna head outside and drop those hides into these pickling baths. Okay, I'm gonna make sure all this salt is dissolved. These hides have been hang drying for 20 minutes or so. Pretty good. So this is what they look like now. I got all the exposed underside of the hide touching pickling solution. They just, you know, they float kind of. So we're gonna come out 2 to 3 times a day, agitate them, and then after that, they're pretty much done pickling. We just gotta rough them up a little bit and put some tanning solution on them, and they should be good to go. Okay guys, sorry for a bit of the low light. I'm doing this at night. It's been 72 hours since I put those deer hides in the pickling bath. It's now time for me to pull them out, and then I've got to use, they say to use a wire wheel. Seems a little bit aggressive, but I'm gonna do kind of just what they say. and you basically run it over the hide. Any thick parts in the hide, you're trying to thin them out. Then you're also trying to get any leftover connective tissue or meat off of there. So the wire wheel I'm gonna start with is just a round one like this, kind of sideways. It seems like I can be a little bit more accurate with it. But I also do have this style where I can just put it flat, which might help me thin it out. So anyways, I'm gonna pull these out, get them laid out on the table and thin them out. And then once I thin them out, I'm throwing them right back into the pickling bath for overnight. And then tomorrow I will pull them out, let them dry a little bit, get the tanning solution on them, and then dry them off. And then once they dry, I'm gonna have to go in and kind of rough them up to make the hide more malleable. So get into that. So this isn't working totally as well as I wanted to, but it is working. It's getting all of this just connective tissue off of there. It's a little bit hard to do around the edges because the thing wants to grip and pull the hide, which is to be expected. But that's also where the most of this connective tissue is. But I'm hoping it's a little bit tough just because I don't have a ton of connective tissue. You know, the hides were pretty clean. But speed is your friend. So high speed and then keep it real light on the hand and just kind of work it back and forth. But it is getting a lot of this just leftover nastiness off. So keep going at this. Do the other one, get them back in the pickle bath, and come back out tomorrow morning. I'm gonna call this one good. Pretty good. Okay, so I've got both the hides as good as I want them. This is all of that connective tissue and leftover that I got. So I got a good amount. Probably not perfect, probably could be better, but I don't want to damage the hide. The hide is extremely tough. Sometimes that hide got wrapped up in the wire wheel and it didn't cause a problem at all. So the hides are very tough, but you do still want to be careful. And don't be afraid to pull the connective tissue off with your hand, or especially around the edges where it gets kind of clumped. It's kind of easy, just grab it and it peels right off. I'm also going to add just a little bit more citric acid to both of these, which is the pickling salt. I'm going to try to make sure, pick it up from the center, try to make sure as much of the hide is exposed as possible for the final night. Okay guys, we are on to the final soak of this hide tanning process. We're skipping the degreaser soak because it's deer hide and apparently you don't need that. It's more for like raccoons and muskrat, things that are greasier. So for this one, I'm timesing everything by 1.5 again into each bucket. So I'm gonna end up with 12 liters of lukewarm water, 345 grams of deionized salt, and then 240 grams of this sodium bicarbonate, which is just baking soda. So I'm gonna get these filled up and then we'll go outside and put the hides back in. They gotta go in for an hour. We gotta stir it pretty often and then we'll pull it out to let it hang dry for a couple hours. Okay, I'm just gonna stir these up, make sure everything's all dissolved. I would imagine that anything that goes wrong with these hides is probably user error, between not getting enough flesh off to making kind of rushed cuts when taking the flesh off the deer, taking the hide off the deer. So okay, so it's been an hour. I'm gonna get these out of the neutralization bath. I'm gonna try to squeegee a bunch of water out of them. Hey buddy. And get them hanging over this table so that they can just get a bunch of moisture out of them for about three hours. I might flip them back and forth underneath this fan just to try to dry them off pretty good. Then I'm gonna lay them on the table, rub the tanning solution on them, and then I've got my pull-up bar with a couple towels on it that I'm gonna hang them over for overnight. I might do a couple coats on them, and after that, should be pretty much done. Okay, so here are the hides, mostly just hair left over. Still some tissue. I've just got them hanging here. I'm gonna turn this fan on and just let them kind of dry out for a couple hours or so. Then we'll be back to rub the solution on them. Okay, so these hides have been drying for about 3 hours, maybe a little more. Now I'm on to this stuff. This is the TruBond 1000B. So this stuff says after the pickling process, apply a liberal layer to the entire skin, let it soak in for 2 hours, reapply, hang the skin. Every 12 hours, tug the skin in all directions. Repeat for 2 days. Hide should remain soft and supple. As the skin dry and is worked, you should observe loosening of fibers and tightening of the leather. So I'm just gonna shake this stuff up real good and get a nice coat on here, let it sit for about 2 hours, and then put another coat on. And then I'll be hanging it over my pull-up bar. And to spread this stuff around, I'm just using one of these foam like craft brushes just to kind of move it along. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours. You might be able to tell from the video, but there's a lot of areas on here that the hide soaked up that solution and need to be gone over again. Kind of see it from the right angle. Certain parts glistening that probably don't need a second coat. Certain parts around here that have sucked it in, which is good. So this hide was a lot thinner, so it has a lot less of that, but I'm still gonna go around the edges and just work all this stuff back into here and just try to get a good, nice, thin second coat on there. And then I'll go ahead and hang them up on my pull-up rack. Okay, now as gracefully as I can after the second coat, I'm gonna try to hang these things up here. Okay, now these hides are hung up out of the way. They're gonna dry like that for about 2 days. Every 12 hours it says to come in and stretch them out and work them, pull apart the fibers, and just keep everything malleable. So I'll be doing that about twice a day, if not more. And then hopefully we should have some pretty malleable, solid deer hides and get this whole process finished up. This whole process from the day I fleshed them to the day I should be done and they should be all worked is about 10 days with the kit, between soaking, drying, salting, all that stuff. So it's definitely a process, and it's something that if you're gonna do, you should try to do it right and take your time doing it, because you'll end up with a much better product, at least I'm hoping. And you're gonna kind of need to be home. You can't really leave a lot. You know, you gotta mix stuff every, 6 hours sometimes it's every 20 minutes. So you gotta be around, you gotta be able to work the hides, make sure all the water has the right level of pH, and make sure that everything's going smoothly and nothing's going wrong in the process. So it's definitely something you want to have the time to do, and it's not to be taken very lightly if you want a solid product. I'm sure there's other ways, I'm sure there's quicker ways, I'm sure there's better ways, but if you want to just buy a kit like I did, so far this seems to be working pretty well, and hopefully it turns out being pretty awesome. Okay guys, so it's been 10 days since I first started. Ever since these hides have been drying, I've been out here every 12 hours for the past 2 days, stretching them, just really pulling apart like these areas, really stretching everything, just making sure everything was worked really well, and they turned out pretty phenomenal in my opinion. They're super malleable, basically just a blanket. The hair is just perfect on them, nice and shiny, clean, and they're nice and white. I'm sure they'll get, you know, color in there over the years being used, but both of these turned out really awesome. I'm super stoked. So if you want a product like this, use that TruBond kit I told you about. Like I said, this hair is staying in and it's just super nice. Perfect for throwing over a couch or, you know, hanging on a wall, making a floor rug, just kind of anything you want. But it's just nice to have some really sick hides. I'm very stoked, especially for my first run at this. I could not really be happier. Thanks for joining me for another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned something. Hope this motivates you guys to do this as well. It's a tedious and long process, but in my opinion, it is super worth it. So go ahead, give it a try. Don't be afraid to screw up and fail. I do it all the time. And go make a nice, cool product out of an animal you harvested.
I think this is probably why my dad never let me use his tools for things like this when I was growing up.